Hey guys, it's your boy Kishiwishi back at it again with another YouTube video. It's been quite some time since your boy has actually sat down in front of the mic. You know, for the past 2 weeks, I've been really busy. I feel like every single time I come back and make another video, I say I've been busy, but then suspiciously content still be popping up out of nowhere. But that's because lately I've been recording videos in batches. So the last 2 videos, like actual quote unquote long form content, you know, that 8-minute and 12-minute long video, I actually recorded those like 3 weeks ago, right? And the funny thing about it is that one of them did semi well, you know, 350 views as of the time of recording. I don't mean to toot my own horn, but that's 300 people that I may or may not have pissed off. And with that video, I'm gonna follow the same type of titling scheme. I'm gonna make it a little bit flagrant, but it's gonna be based on what we're talking about. So for today, we're gonna talk about how ever since like the pandemic, I think it's been enough time that has passed where we can actually talk about it without having to worry about, oh no, Google's gonna censor me because Dr. Fauci doesn't want us talking about this shit. Yeah, but you know, the coronavirus, COVID, you know, I'm saying all the words that would have gotten your videos flagged back in 2020 right now. I feel like ever since then, there's been a steep decline in socialization between people, and an even steeper decline in like just baseline knowledge that you would expect a lot of people to have. See, me and a lot of people in my age group, we were semi-lucky. And what I mean by semi-lucky, the COVID-19 pandemic affected my generation of Gen Z in one of the most unique ways for any other generation. So to put into perspective, people that are like millennials, you know, like I think currently 28 and older, those motherfuckers, yeah, they're already adults when the pandemic started. So for them people, it's like, okay, I'm like about to finish my 4th year in university. I'm gonna go into the job market. Oh, the world shut down. But hey, at least I had experiences as an adult. You know, I did all the milestones in your early 20s, you know, late teenage years, getting drunk, fucked up, doing stupid shit. Yeah, they had that. And then you see for Gen Z, as soon as we became adults, it's like boom, lockdown. But the thing with what happened with the lockdown is, despite everybody being at different levels, because the reason why I didn't even bring up like the younger Gen Z and Gen Alpha is like, you motherfuckers basically got a free pass from school for 2 years, which kind of contributes to the American literacy crisis. A lot of you motherfuckers can't read. I read my comments. It really fucking baffled. This is part of the reason why I will never become a teacher. Like, growing up, I've always been told that, hey, you know, you're really smart. You can teach people things. You know, every time you have a conversation with you, it's like I learned something new. Yeah. The thing about learning is that you have to actually give a shit. And I think ever since COVID, and just the way how society has been progressively going towards a more individualistic, I'm gonna have my own niche algorithm, I'm not gonna have a shared experience to speak with my peers with. Ever since that's been going on, people have becoming less and less socially, I was gonna say less and less not socially inept, but is it aptitude? Is aptitude is a word? Because I know ineptitude is a word, but not a lot of people are socially adept. That's the word I was looking for, adept. Yes, you see, I'm showing off my very extensive vocabulary, despite the fact that I'm doing a lot of walking around. I'm recording this while standing. I wanted to do a different approach today, but yeah, I feel like a part of the major social decline that our society is having is the fact that everybody's in their own little bubbles of information. And what do I mean by this? See, when we were all growing up in the early 2000s, and for those of you who are on the younger side who think the early 2000s is the 1990s, I pray for your soul. Back then, we didn't have streaming services. We had cable. So everybody would watch stuff from the same channels. The only difference would be which channel you got your content from. Were you a Disney Channel kid, a Nickelodeon kid, Cartoon Network kid, or were you just a kids cartoon consumer? Because those are like the three channels I would cycle through. And with that, having the same source of information that everybody has, you know, you go to school, what are we talking about? Oh, you saw that new episode of SpongeBob. But in our modern day, the only thing that really binds us together outside of actually speaking face to face is the fucking brain rot shit posting memes you see on the fucking internet, especially on TikTok. I think TikTok is like the worst thing to ever happen to our society. And I feel like everyone parrots this point so much to the point where it's like, okay, it's a meme to say that. But no, I can say from first-hand example, and I know there's like a new thing going around with like Morgan lawsuit talking about like the whole YouTube and like Google Meta having services or like social media that made us anxious or addicted or whatever the fuck. And like, respectfully speaking, yo, during the peak of COVID, I almost said lockdown or like isolation, like, bro, I was going fucking crazy. Like being alone during the pandemic and only having your own thoughts being parroted back to you from an algorithm versus back in like 2008 where everybody was just watching the same, okay guys, we're making the copium, you know, the Americans need some hope right now, so we're gonna release Tropic Thunder, a movie that's making fun of all the World War veteran films, but it's really funny and it's really on the nose with the issues of the Vietnam War. You remember the Vietnam War from like 30 years ago? I know you can't afford a house right now, but you remember the Vietnam War? Yeah, here's a satirical take on everything around that time period. You know, we had content back in the day that would actually like somewhat perform a psyop that was beneficial. And when I say beneficial, I'm not saying beneficial for you on an individual level, but beneficial for the country. Because whenever like a huge tragedy happens, I feel like the mainstream media tries to overcorrect what happens by not really covering it up, but like making a spin to it. Another prime example from the early 2000s that I can give you. Literally every single fucking movie that takes place in the desert, like fucking American Sniper or Saving Private Ryan, those movies came out directly as a result of the 9/11 bombings, or wrong term, the 9/11 incident, my bad. I almost implicated myself there, even though back in 2001 I popped out of my mom 2 months after the buildings went down. I was a little bit late to the party, guys, sorry. You can put the roofs back up. And if you found that very offensive, I hate to break it to you, 9/11 was 24 fucking years ago, my nigga. Actually, this year is gonna be like the 25th anniversary. I turned 25 this year, bro. I'm getting old. Okay, I'm losing track of my thoughts right here. But yeah, back in the early 2000s, literally right after a massive tragedy, the entire Hollywood movie industry or media was making content to make us happier. Now that we're all branched off in our own little bubbles of echo chambers, we're essentially becoming more and more retarded. And I don't give a fuck if this pisses anybody off, but like literally the concept of brain rot is on its own just the word brain rot. It's rotting your fucking brain. The fact that that's like one of the biggest thing on social media right now, on everybody's algorithm, like I feel like if you go to a fucking monk in the Himalayas, yes, a shaman Tibetan fucking monk, and show him tung 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 sahur, that nigga will have a fucking chuckle on his face because he saw that shit on his fucking iPhone 7. I don't know what them fucking Tibetan monk niggas be having. I don't know how much money they take from the people in fucking Tibet to like buy technologies and shit. But all I know, you could probably go to a random fucking place in Africa. Well, obviously, you go to Africa, they know I show speed. Like he's been there a couple of times. But it's the fact that say wallahi, bro. Like the phrase say wallahi, bro, is probably gonna make a motherfucker in like the most remote countryside of Kazakhstan fucking laugh because that shit has spread so far throughout the fucking internet. Does Kazakhstan has internet? I don't fucking know. They probably do. But reeling this back in, I didn't mean to go on that long ass rant about how the how the different algorithms and shit is basically breaking us off from a common source of knowledge. But I had to go into that little rant because not having a common source of knowledge is part of the reason why people can't have fucking conversations anymore. Like, picture this. Back in time, even for you younger folks who are probably like 12, 13, 14, you just got into this social media bullshit, right? So think back in time to when you're like 6 or 7. Haha, thick seven. Your entire concept of like existence in life is just you getting new information every day. I know for the younger folks here, you're probably fucked. You're probably like you're an iPad kid. If you're an iPad kid, this does not apply to you. But for us people who grew up before the invention of the iPhone, who actually had some back when screen time meant, oh, you watch TV too much, not, oh, it's a setting on your fucking phone that you can search up. Yeah, for us who can actually think of a time where screen time was just TV, just think, the only thing that you and your peers would talk about would be about things that you just learned, didn't know, experience from someone else. You'd always talk about ideas. You'd always talk about things that were foreign to you because you didn't know anything. And I think in the world of technology or information that we're in right now, since there's just so much information just out there at our fucking fingertips, that we have become so complacent with how much access we have to technology that now we're actively choosing to be ignorant of said like ideas. And an example of what I'm talking about. Whew, I'm getting really worked up about this, but there was a saying that said, wise minds discuss ideas. So you and a friend sitting down talking about, oh, I'm gonna do this cool thing that I'm thinking about. It's like, oh, what's that cool thing you're thinking about doing? And then they explain to you how they're gonna do the cool thing, and you're like, oh, I've never heard of that before. Like, that's so cool. And then they give you like a play-by-play how they're gonna do it, and then from that little interaction of them telling you about some weird concept that they're thinking about, you learn something new, and then that person who's telling you that feels a sense of connection because they just gave information to you. That is how human connections and friendships work. It's an exchange of information, whether or not it's very personal information, or it doesn't really matter. That's how people connect. Literally sharing information, gossiping, even though it's like against some religious doctrines to gossip and stuff. Gossiping or just exchanging information is how people connect. But when the information is low vibrational or information that isn't really productive, that's when we get into a society that we're in. Look at the types of things that people make blow up on social media. And I didn't even finish the saying. Wise minds discuss ideas, common minds discuss events, and feeble minds discuss people. Going back to the same example, when you're a kid, you didn't really care about gossiping about, oh, did you see what that other kid's doing? You didn't really give a fuck about that. I'm talking about when you're really young. It's when we start getting up into like the age of like older elementary school to middle school is when we actually start giving a shit about what's going around us. Like, I feel like, and I hope this isn't just an experience for me, because, you know, my childhood experience might be a little bit more unique than some of y'all's here. You know, I was a little autistic nigga down in Jamaica, you know, big up, big J, you know. You don't know nothing about that. You probably don't know what the fuck me I say right, you know. But, you know, it's all right. It's all right. You know, all good vibes. You know, you come here on the Kishi Wishi YouTube channel to get good vibes, some good information, sometimes bad information. You don't know, but you know, I mean this. I mean that chat up on the ears right here now. Yeah. All right. Whatever. I would just keep it going. Yeah. I feel like I'm in a low Kirkentological low state, you know, for some of you brain rotted fiends that are watching me. And, you know, it's when you get into the older age ranges is when you actually start going from being a wise mind to becoming more of a common than a feeble mind. Because, you know, oh, look, did you see what Kim Kardashian did? You see, there was like little pieces of that showing up inside the culture in the early 2000s. In the early 2000s, mid 2000s or whatever, most of media was just showing information. But once people or like the companies figured out like, oh, if we push out different types of information, and let me roll it back really quick, because I know there's gonna be one of you contrarian, pedantic motherfuckers in my comments saying, "Oh, the media's always been like that." All right, I understand the media has always been pushing a narrative or whatever the fuck, but you see, my nigga, I was born in 2001. All right. So my slice of the pie in the time of what media is like, I can't tell you what the fucking tabloids in 1863 were saying about fucking the fucking Civil War and shit. I'm pretty sure, yeah, Civil War started in 62, right? Ended in 65. You know, see, these are things that people aren't really talking about anymore. People are talking about, oh, did you hear what this random fucking rapper artist did? Yeah, this one cheated on that one over there. I was like, okay. You're so knowledgeable about some bullshit happening in somebody else's life that when I mentioned the name Edgar Allan fucking Poe to you, your eyes fucking glaze over and you think I'm just saying like an alliteration, or if you even know what a fucking an alliteration is, because if you did, you know that Edgar Allan Poe is not an alliteration. But But it's like the types of things that people have knowledge of nowadays is so inconsequential to the overall, like, what actually matters on a day-to-day basis. And you can make the argument that, hey, you know, having the dream of opening up a ice cream / soup shop isn't really productive, but it's a creative thing, you know, it's an original thought. We're in an era where original thought is becoming such a foreign concept that I literally saw this in a YouTube video a couple of days ago, which is literally like me probably undermining the original thought thing. But did you know that in the year of 2024, almost every single top 10 movie was a sequel or prequel to a previous existing IP? Like the concept of, hey, let's make a property that is different from what anyone has ever seen is becoming such a foreign thing that it's trickling down to everyday people. We don't talk about original ideas anymore amongst our peers. We talk about events happening in other fucking countries that we can't even point on a fucking map. Can you just think about that? There are people probably crying about the state of Uzbekistan who don't even know if Uzbekistan is still Uzbekistan. There's so many countries over in that part of the world, like Serbia or Yemen, and I'm just naming countries that I don't know, that I can't point off on the map. Yugoslavia, I think Yugoslavia is the example that I actually want to give. Like, there's probably people out there that if you go up to them and ask them, hey, how do you feel about the refugees in Yugoslavia? They would not be knowledgeable enough to know that Yugoslavia is no longer recognized as a nation. Like, I'm pretty sure it's split into like Slovenia and like Czech or something like that. If you want to fry me in the comments on me talking as if I'm knowledgeable, but I'm just as ignorant as the people I'm talking about, go the fuck ahead. But you want to know one thing that a common fuck won't do? A true commoner would not set themselves aside and point out the hypocrisies of what they are doing and that they see their other peers are doing. So you're like, you guys can fry me and say, oh, how are you gonna say this and that, but then you yourself are talking from personal experience. at least I have the balls to talk about my personal experience and try to put it in a constructive way that is digestible for someone else to arrive to the same point that I'm coming to, or at least see what I'm trying to say. But like being intellectually dishonest for the sake of, hey, I want to seem the way I present myself, like, yes, this is the identity that I portray onto the internet, and because I portray this identity onto the internet, all of my actions that I perform on the internet is going to be through this lens or through this identity that is separate from me, because who I am and what I experience on a day-to-day basis is completely different from the bullshit nonsense that I spew online. I'm going to make this stand right here and disagree with this nigga because I have a different political leaning from him, even though not once did this nigga explicitly say I am a Trump supporter or I love Kamala fucking Harris. And with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope this opened up your eyes. You know, read a fucking book, you know, watch some old movies, you know, you can learn something. Just get off your phone, bro. Like, and don't do that halfway bullshit where you put on a movie but then you're still on your phone and the movie's playing in the background. Like, nigga, turn off the lights, put your phone under your fucking pillow and stare at that goddamn screen and listen to the propaganda that your grandpappy and your grandmammy were fucking to back when they made your mother or your dad. All right, Kishuishi out. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and let me know if you guys want me to make more content like this one where I just start talking and keep talking passionately. And yes, for this entire duration of this 20-minute video, I have been walking back and forth in my room. Anyways, that's it. Be good people, and remember, Papa Wisha loves ya. All right, see you later.